Hey, and welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to discuss how to have compassion on self, to stop beating ourselves up over the things that we are not doing, or maybe some of the things that we would like to stop doing, but we're finding difficult to stop. We're going to learn how to have compassion so that we're a lot softer with ourselves and we're actually a lot kinder with ourselves. If you like this video, please like it. And please subscribe to the channel so that you can get all notifications for all future upcoming videos. Having compassion on ourselves is such an important concept, and learning to be kind with ourselves is so important as well. Because if you think about it, if you think about the type of people that you like to be around, typically they are nice, kind, and compassionate individuals. So we know that we like to be around those type of people. So we need to be that type of person so that we can be okay with ourselves. And I discussed this in the video of how to deal with loneliness. And if we're constantly beating ourselves up and criticizing ourselves and we're not kind to ourselves, we're going to struggle to be in our own space. And then many times we will feel this need, this extreme need to be around people so that they can make us feel okay. So part of the process of dealing with loneliness and being comfortable with ourselves is learning to communicate with ourselves. And one of the things that we need to learn to communicate with ourselves is compassion. It's being kind with ourselves. It's being soft with ourselves. It doesn't mean that we start building excuses as to why we are the way we are and the things that we do and the things that we should be doing that we're not doing, or things we should stop doing. It's not about finding excuses. It's about having compassion and being kind. And the more compassionate and the kinder we are to ourselves, the more we're going to feel better about ourselves and the more we're going to be comfortable with ourselves as well. But if we take it just a step further, if we beat ourselves up, we're kind of sending a message to ourselves that we're not good enough. If we beat ourselves up and we criticize ourselves for the things that we should be doing or the things that we should stop doing, then we're not going to feel okay with ourselves, and that then is going to impact our feelings of self-worth. And I've discussed on the video of the 3 most important things that we have to own in our lives if we want to live an incredible life. And one of those things is self-worth. Self-worth is so important. It's such an important emotion that we're all going to get met. The question is where we're going to get that feeling from. And unfortunately, a lot of people are getting it from the external world. They're not getting it from inside themselves. They're getting it maybe from their physical body, maybe from the clothes that they wear, maybe from their job title, maybe from people pleasing, always making people happy, which has terrible negative consequences. So learning to be kind to ourselves and having compassion on ourselves is so, so important, because the reality is we're never going to get everything done. No one is perfect. Life is about growing and becoming stronger and becoming better and unleashing more potential each day, each week, each month, each year. But we're never, ever going to get everything done. There's always going to be things that we want to change. There's always going to be things that we want to achieve more. There's always things that we want to feel more and experience more. It's never ending. It's never ending. There's always going to be things on our to-do list of self-improvement and self-achievement. But if we are constantly beating ourselves up and we're not kind to ourselves about the things that we're struggling with, then that journey, that life journey of being what I call a creator, taking what's in here and making it visible, is not going to be a pleasant journey. It's going to come with a lot of punches. And that's going to have a really negative consequence, because we're not going to feel good about ourselves and we're not going to feel comfortable with ourselves. And that's going to lead us to really unhealthy behaviors. So learning to be compassionate is a life mission, because it's going to serve us throughout our life on this journey of being a creator and expressing our personality and expressing our potential. Now, I've discussed on another video how to give ourselves self-praise. I've discussed a concept of the scale and no black and white thinking, go for the grey. But in this video, I want to discuss a different concept, a major thing, a major concept that holds people back from showing compassion to themselves, from giving themselves some kindness, and not being so tough on themselves and beating themselves up when they are struggling with certain stuff, a certain task, a specific thing that they're trying to change and shift in their lives. And it kind of goes like this, that you can't have compassion if you leave out context. I'll say that again. You can't have compassion if you leave out context. And what I mean is the following. Many of the times I'll be giving a workshop or one-to-one therapy in my private clinic, and people come in like, I can't believe I haven't got this done, and I'm not getting as far as I should, and they start beating themselves up with these personal narratives. And, you know, as we explained that core equation, our thinking creates our feeling, which creates our behaviors. So that's, their thinking is very tough, which creates feelings of being disempowered, of feeling down, and maybe anger towards themselves and frustration with life, and that leads to really unhealthy behaviors. And a lot of the times that can then hold them back from changing because they feel like there's just no point. But when we just focus on what we haven't done and we leave out all the background noise, we're not getting the whole picture. And I'm very much about getting the whole picture, all the evidence, all the noise. Because if you only focus on one tiny part of a story, you're not going to come to a balanced conclusion. It's like reading a book, effectively. If you go to, I don't know, halfway through or 3/4 of the way through the book and you start reading it, you're not going to know what's going on. Nothing is going to make sense. You're not going to really know who is the hero, who's the villain, who's, you know, the perpetrator, who's the victim, who's the hero. You're not going to know. You're never going to be able to put it all together because you haven't got the background noise of all the previous chapters. So when we're struggling with something in life, we have to stop just focusing only on what we're struggling with, but we have to take in all the context, right? What's going on in our lives right now that's contributing to holding us back? You know, if you're going through a difficult phase, you're going through a difficult situation at work, or you've got a difficult past, or you've got in a difficult relationship, or you've left a difficult relationship, or you're having problems with your kids, or you've got a problem at home with the roof and it's leaking in. Those things, I mean, there's just a few examples, those things are going to take up a little bit of our mind space. They're going to take up some of our energy. And that's normal, that's okay, because life doesn't go in a straight line. There's always going to be things that go wrong that are there to push us to become stronger. But if we just ignore them and pretend that those things aren't happening, and we're like, well, why can't I give all my energy to this project? Why can't I give all my energy to changing this bad habit or this unhealthy habit? Then we're not really seeing the whole picture, because the whole picture says that there are other things going on in our life right now that are taking up some of that energy. Now, it could be that we need to learn to deal with those difficult challenges in a healthier way. That's a fair point. It could be we need to upgrade our thinking and upgrade our emotional intelligence. You can see there's a link below to on my system of emotional intelligence, how to really be emotionally stronger and learn how to communicate with ourselves, with our emotions in a really intelligent way. You can check it out below. And it could be we need to improve that. But at the end of the day, context is always going to be available. It's always there. You know, if you go to a murder trial, context comes in. You know, what was the context? Was it premeditated? Was it manslaughter? Was it self-defense? What was it? And that makes a massive difference in the outcome of the trial. But I find that people are constantly putting themselves on trial without the context. They're just looking at what they did. They're just looking at the fact they haven't done this, or they keep on looking at the fact that they did something that they continue to do something that they're not happy with. It doesn't bring them much joy and doesn't make them feel like they're living by a high standard. But they leave out all the background noise and all the context. And you can't have compassion. You can't be kind to ourselves if we don't bring in the context that comes in to every trial. But we're putting ourselves on trial without bringing in all the background noise, all the context, everything that's leading us up to this point, everything that's going on in our lives right now. And I know for myself, with the difficult challenges that I've been through, some really, really challenging experiences I don't wish upon anyone, I was able to show myself compassion and kindness on days, or over a period of time where I wasn't being my most productive self, maybe 80% out of 100% productivity, and sometimes even less. You know, I looked at the whole background noise. I looked at the fact that I was being 50, 60, 70, 80% productive compared to maybe what I would have been, you know, had I not had all those challenges going on. And I was able to look at what I was doing, and I was able to look at the background noise to explain that 30% gap in my productivity, and I was fine with it. I didn't beat myself up. Had I beat myself up, my productivity would probably gone even lower. So because I was looking at the whole picture, and because I was looking at all the background noise and all the context that was going on, and I was able to focus on how much I was doing despite those challenges, I felt really, really good. And my focus became on how am I going to increase it? But if we're constantly beating ourselves up over the parts that we're not doing, well, that's probably going to decrease what we're already doing, because we're not going to acknowledge what we are doing despite those challenges. So it has a really negative effect if we beat ourselves up, and it has a really positive effect if we focus not only on what we're doing despite those challenges, but we take those challenges in and we acknowledge them, and we recognize that these are challenges. Challenges can be difficult. pain is a real thing. It's, some experiences are painful. What we do with those experiences, the personal narrative that we bring out of those personal experiences will define what we do going forward, which I talk about in my videos of how to make pain your best friend. You can look that video up if you want to find out more what I mean by that. But if we don't take in the context, if we don't take in the background noise, and we beat ourselves up over what we're not doing, and how, why we should be further in life, then chances are that's going to hold us back, because that's going to create a really disempowering feeling, which is probably going to create unhealthy behaviors, which is going to give us more of a reason to beat ourselves up and feel down and not feel good about life and feel frustrated. And those kind of emotions don't really bring much healthy or positive outcomes. But the flip side is also true. If we start focusing on what we are doing, despite those challenges, and we start bringing in that background noise, that context of those challenges that are going on in our life right now, or even something that happened maybe 20 years ago, you got a trauma from 20 years ago, obviously we've got to deal with that trauma, but we recognize the impact of that trauma that might be holding us back in our productivity in any area of life, we're going to be kinder to ourselves, we're going to be more compassionate, and our focus, our mindset is going to be more about, okay, it makes sense why I'm only being 70% productive or 50% productive or even 40% productive. What am I going to do to improve it? Your mindset will allow you to go down that line of thinking because we're focusing on what we can control. But if we focus on the 30% and all the stuff that we're not doing, it's going to make us feel out of control, and no good is going to come out of that. So there are so many negatives when we don't beat ourselves up. We're going to find it hard to be by ourselves, because just like we don't want to be around people who aren't kind, just like we don't want to be around people who are not compassionate, we're not going to be around ourselves, and we're going to have to stifle and squash that feeling of being lonely, and being lonely with someone who's not kind and who's not compassionate, and that comes with a lot of negative and unhealthy consequences. Chances are we're not going to feel good about our self-worth. We're probably not going to find a way to achieve more because we're too busy focusing on what we're not doing and beating our core up, beating up our sense of self. But if we do focus not only on what we have achieved so far and give ourselves the credit for achieving that amount despite the challenges that are going on, and we focus on the fact that there's a context, there's a reason why we're not getting that extra 30, 40, 50 or even 60% done, we're going to be a lot kinder with ourselves. We're going to be okay in our own space, in our own skin, and we're going to feel connected, and we're going to feel more empowered. And that feeling of being in control and being empowered is probably going to lead us to a different style of thinking of, okay, what am I going to do to increase it? And I know that's been my experience. By having that compassion and that kindness, through taking in the context, through the context I was able to create compassion. And over time, dealing with the really difficult challenges that I've had, it's allowed me to increase that productivity, to get it back to what it was, and to even increase it and make it even higher than it was, because it was a focus of, what have I done so far? What can I be proud of despite the challenges? And what am I going to do to increase it? And I'll bring this out just to show you how true this is. And this is an example that I always use, and it's a very powerful example. I use it with couples as well. When we step outside of ourselves, we can normally recognize how unfair we're being with ourselves. I do it with couples. It works nearly every single time. So, I might have a husband and, got a husband and wife, and, the wife might complain about the husband's behavior. I don't know. He does something. I can't think of an example now. Typically when I need one, I can't think of one. I've got thousands in my head. But he does something, and he can't recognize the pain that behavior is causing his spouse, his wife. So I always say, I say to the husband or the wife, whichever way around it is, and I say, just imagine that your daughter, right, or your son, whoever it might be, and they come to you and say that their spouse is doing what you're doing to your spouse, right? Your son, your daughter, who you want to protect and you want the best for, you want them to be loved by your son-in-law or daughter-in-law, they're doing the exact same behavior that they're doing the exact same behavior that you're doing to your spouse. How would you feel about your son-in-law and daughter-in-law? And 9 times out of 10, they would normally say, the husband or wife would say, okay, I wouldn't be too happy with them. And I'm like, you wouldn't be happy with them because you recognize it's not okay for someone to do that to someone you love. So why is it okay for you to do it to someone else's daughter? Because your spouse is someone's daughter, or your spouse is someone's son. Your spouse is God's child. Why is that okay? And it kind of brings out the point and they recognize it. But so it's a very powerful concept to get people to see the same setting within a different relationship that they would care about, and it gets them to open up their eyes and be less defensive. But I like to do it when it comes to compassion. I always say, imagine your scenario is going on, your life circumstances and what you're struggling with is going on with your child who you love dearly, or a really good friend, or someone you really care about, and they come to you and they tell you the exact same setting that you've got in your life, the things that they're struggling with, these challenges that they've got, their lived experience, everything. They come to you and they say, oh, yeah, I'm just pathetic, I'm just ridiculous, I can't get this stuff done, or I can't stop this habit, or I can't seem to shift this, and I can't seem to deal with this challenge, and I'm just a nothing, I can't believe I'm so pathetic. What would you say to them? Right? What would you say to them? Most people tell me that they would respond with the following. They would respond with kindness and compassion. They would firstly say, look how far you've come. Look how well you've done despite everything that's going on. But also, more importantly, look at the context. They would say to their friend, you're ignoring the context. Don't be so hard upon yourself. Don't be so critical of yourself. You've got so much going on that would hold a lot of people back. Stop beating yourself up and start accepting the fact that there are really strong challenges in your life currently or in the past that is contributing to this barricade of you moving forward. Have more compassion. 9 times out of 10, people would say that to their friend. And I throw back the question, why don't we do it to ourselves? Why won't we give the same respect that we would give to a friend to bring in the context which brings compassion? Why won't we give it to ourselves? And the answer is, there's no reason. There is no reason why we don't. It's just a lot of people don't recognize that this important concept that context brings compassion. Context brings compassion. But now we do recognize it. From this video, hopefully you've taken away this valuable concept that context brings compassion. So now we've got no excuse, because we know we would do it for a friend, and we know we would do it for someone that we love, a child, a son, or daughter. So it's time that we start giving that to ourselves. And I would suggest that once a day, when we don't do something that we wanted to do, or we weren't able to stop something that we wanted to do, instead of beating ourselves up with the thinking of, I can't believe I can't stop, I can't believe I can't get this done, how pathetic am I, how ridiculous is it? Let's ask new questions. Let's start a new trail of thought. Let's hop onto a new train and take us down a different direction and ask the questions like, let's look how far I've come so far. Let's not get focused on this one task that I'm struggling with. Let's look at everything I've achieved so far in my life. But let's also look at the context. Let's look at not only what have I achieved, but what have I got going on in my life right now that was contributing to this? What do I have to deal with psychologically, emotionally, or even within the external environment? What do I have to remove from my life? Might be a negative friend. Friends can have a really good or bad influence on us. They say you're the sum of your 5 best friends. Their thinking, their attitudes, their emotional well-being is going to have an impact on all of us. What do I have to do to improve? Let's adopt that style of thinking of focusing on what we have done so far, not just within that one task, but with everything that we've achieved so far. That's why we're getting so hooked on to and focusing on and narrowing down our vision down to one thing that we're struggling. Let's look at our bigger picture. What have I achieved so far? How far have I come? But more importantly, what is contributing to this feeling, this struggle? What's contributing to this barricade that's standing in my way that won't allow me to get through this change, this shift? And what am I going to do? What do I need to do to become stronger? What do I need to do to learn to remove this barricade, to either deal with the challenges in a better way or find a way despite those challenges to increase my strength, emotional strength, so that I can get through the barricade? And if we do that, we're going to find ourselves being a lot kinder to ourselves and bringing in a lot more compassion, just like we would for a friend. And the consequences of that, we're going to feel more comfortable being with ourselves, because we're going to be around someone, we're going to be with ourselves, around someone who's kind. And we are attracted to kind people. We are attracted to compassionate people. So if we really want to build that sense of being comfortable with ourselves and that sense of self-love, then we have to start giving what we would give to other people. And that is kindness and compassion when we're struggling with something. And it all comes down to this one line. Context creates compassion. It's now time for us to start increasing that. Even if we're doing it already, let's increase it and make it even more so that we can be okay with ourselves and give ourselves the self-love that we truly deserve.